All right, 2024 maple syrup season is open for business. It's what is it, February 25th today. My neighbor and some of my other friends in the area here in southern Vermont tapped a week and a half ago when there was a bit of a warm spell. I chose to wait because it was cold last week, and the sap doesn't run when it's too cold. Um, It's in the upper 20s right now, about 28 degrees. And this week, there's a favorable forecast for the sap to run. It's going to be in the 40s and 50s during the day and get cold at night, down in the 20s and teens, that's ideal for sugaring. Uh, Not a lot of snowpack right now for late February. This is more what it looks like in early April, usually here in southern Vermont. So it's been a very low precipitation winter so far. And that doesn't mean much for syrup production or anything. It's more that when there's a lot of snow, it's harder to go collect your sap, right? Because you're trudging through snow. And when there's not a lot of snow, I use this sled to drag my tools when I'm tapping, and then also to haul the sap out of the woods. So when there's no snow, it's a little harder. So ideally, you want like an inch of crusty snow. That's my ideal anyway. So I'm gonna get tapping here, and I'll just try to, uh, you know, give some tips and info along the way of how I usually do this. Um, these are all these are all sugar maples here along my rock wall on the property border. I have a lot of red maples, which red maples will produce sap, and it has sugar content, just not as high a sugar content as sugar maples. So sugar maples are ideal, and you can actually tap any hardwood will have sap that you can boil down. Um, but for me, I'm making maple syrup today, and so I'll be tapping my sugar maples. I got my tools, um, my drill, of course, and my 7/16 inch bit. No, sorry, 5/16. This is a special maple tapping bit. The tip is designed to get in the tree nice and cleanly. When I first started doing this 10, 12 years ago, I learned the hard way that if you use a regular old wood bit, or a spade bit is the worst, that it makes a sloppy hole, and your spile will leak around that hole. So these aren't cheap. They're, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 bucks or something, but definitely worth it. I have a piece of tape on here to mark my depth, because you don't want to go too deep, any deeper than necessary, and harm the tree. So I have a mark 2 inches, and that's where I drill to. There's different schools of thought on how deep to drill. I have another video, if you search my channel, of it's showing how far to drill, my theory anyway, and there's a cross section of a log in that video to show you how far you can drill. Eventually, you're going to get out of the sapwood and hit the heartwood. So my drill, this is just a rubber mallet for tapping the spiles in, and that's really all you need. I use a little twig to clean out the hole once I've drilled it, but that's kind of it. Okay. Now you'll be able to see where I drilled my holes last year. So here's my hole from last year. As you can see, it closed up. So when you tap a tree, it makes a vertical scar. And then you can't tap that again because it's dead wood behind it. So from where you drill for about 8 inches up to a foot above and 8 inches to a foot below, it's going to be scarred, and you won't get any sap production there. So you have to move to the side or well above or well below. So my strategy is usually to just go, depending on how the tree looks, of course, if it's all dead over here, you wouldn't, but to just go about 6 inches to the right and then just keep working your way around the tree. So it would take you, you know, depending on how big the tree is, many, many years to get back around to the other side. So I'm gonna just come over about 6 inches. There's a nice clean spot with not a ton of bark. I'm just gonna drill nice and straight into the tree. There's some schools of thought. My neighbor likes to put a little bit of a downward angle on his holes. I just go straight in. I don't think there's any benefit either way. He likes to go down because, you know, the sap can then drip out, but if you're straight in, the sap can collect and just come right out of the spile anyway. So I'm just gonna go straight in. You wanna go clean and fast and then come right back out because you don't want any sloppiness. You want a nice, clean, straight hole in the tree. That's it. As I mentioned, it's in the upper 20s today. So doubtful that this tree will be running sap today. Maybe later. It's supposed to get up into the mid 30s, but probably not. But like I said, later this week, we're gonna get some really favorable temps in the 40s and 50s. All right, now it's time to put the spile in. So I have two kinds of spiles or taps. One is plastic and one is aluminum. I've come to prefer the aluminum through the years, but I still have a ton of plastic and I'm a cheapskate, so I'm just kind of slowly cycling those out. Here's the aluminum one right here. Here's the plastic one. This one has a hook for the bucket, and this one you put the bucket up over the top and it hooks onto that little grabber there. They both seem to work just as well as the other, and they are both 5/16 inch on the back here. You can get 7/16 inch spiles, which are more the classic kind of old-fashioned ones, but I like to use 5/16 because it's more damage to the tree. So I'm going to put this plastic one in first here. Not much to it. Just going to check and make sure my hole is nice and clean first. Just have a twig. Get any shavings out of there that could clog up the spile. Looks good. Tap that in. You don't want to tap too hard. Just enough for it to seat itself so that a heavy bucket hanging on it won't pull it out. If you go too far, you can actually split the wood and it'll leak. So you want to just make sure you get it seated in there and don't go too far. I have two kinds of buckets. This is about a 3-gallon, I think, galvanized steel. These are kind of the old-fashioned that have been used for a century around here. And then these are the newer aluminum buckets. These hold less, about 2 gallons. These are lighter weight. And the big advantage to these aluminums is they don't have any seams on them. These old galvanized have this seam going up, which is prone to fail over time, especially if your bucket freezes and the sap expands. It can blow out that seam, and you won't have that problem in these aluminum buckets. So I'm gonna throw an aluminum on here. No, I'm gonna throw a galvanized on here. And then lid, very important, keeps the rain out, most importantly. but also does a little bit to protect it from bugs getting in there, or maybe a thirsty squirrel or something. And that's that. Moving on to the next one. All right, so I'm looking for my hole from last year. Don't see one on here. Maybe I didn't tap this tree last year. It's definitely a sugar maple. Oh, here it is. Here it is right here, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna come over about 6 inches from that. Clear a little of this dead bark. This is straight. Turn up my drill a little. Grab a twig, clean out the hole a bit. Good to go. Put a tap in there. Throw a bucket and a lid on. There's another theory that tapping on the south side of a tree, which gets the sun exposure, is going to give you more sap production, which I do think there's truth to that. But on the flip side, later in the season, when it's warmer and it's almost too warm, you're going to get some production on the north side of the tree where it's cooler. And this is when, typically around here happens in April, when it gets really warm in the 50s every day, maybe even the 60s. You could still be getting some production on the north side of the tree. All right, we've got 2 here, so I'm gonna do 2 in a row. Looking for my holes from last year. This one I've tapped many times over the years because it's a big guy. You can see one here, one here, one up here. So I will probably come right over here to make sure I'm away from the scar. Now I'm on the extreme north side of the tree here, where it never gets any sun. But this tree is big enough that I usually put 2 taps on this one, 2 buckets, so I'll put one on the south side as well. Clean out the holes for any wood shavings. And throw in the taps. All right, looking for last year's holes, so I don't tap right above or below them. This is another really big tree, so I'll put 2 buckets on this one. Now I can see there's a dead part of the tree over here. There's a split in it. It's a dead bark. So obviously I'm not going to tap in here. There's not going to be good healthy sapwood right in here. There's a seam going all the way down. So I want to find something else. This is a pretty healthy tree overall. This looks like a tap hole from many years ago. So I'm going to stay away from that one. Kind of spot where my other ones might have been. This tree looks pretty healthy all the way up. So I'm going to come over 7-8 inches from there. This looks like a pretty healthy spot. The bark's in nice good shape, nice and tight on here. It's not just flaking off. So it's likely healthy underneath. So here's the difference between tapping on the north side of the tree and the south side. This is the north side here. This one never sees any sun this side of the tree, and as you can see, this hole is not producing any sap. If we come over to the south side of the tree, the sun's been on it all morning. It's what time is it now? 11:45. You can't really see, it's not dripping out right now, but this hole is at least wet. So it's starting to produce a little bit on the south side of the tree. Now, in the end, you know, I've never done a data measurement to see how the south side of this tree performs to the north side, but just anecdotally, in the end, they seem to do about the same production. And I think that's because, you know, this side of the tree will warm up earlier in the morning and start producing sap. But then the north side catches up and probably continues a little longer than the south side. So in the end, they're about the same. If I had my druthers, you know, I would only tap on the south side because it probably does produce a little more. But I like to put 2 taps on these big trees, and I want to be able to tap these for many, many years. And because those taps leave a scar, you know, I'll blow up the entire south side of the tree in 10 years, and then I'll be stuck with only on the north side after that because of the scars left behind. So it's kind of just a, you know, a strategy game, pros and cons of south and north side. All right, put these taps in, spiles, and move on to the next tree. I am not 100% sure this is a maple tree. It looks like it, but it's a little on the small side. I could, of course, tap it and it would be fine. It wouldn't kill the tree or anything, but it's a little small. And I have plenty of other mature maples here. So I'm gonna let that one kind of keep growing. It's like putting a small fish back in the sea so you can catch it later. So I'm gonna let that one lay. It looks like I've never tapped this one. So might as well keep the streak going. Here's a couple beauties. I've definitely tapped these before. If you do have any questions, feel free to throw them out. I am checking the phone here every once in a while. All right, this must be the hole from a couple years ago. This is probably from last year because I do not see another one. Usually I go over about 6 inches from the year before. I don't see one. Oh, here's one right here. So I think those are about 10 inches apart. So I have room in the middle here to put a tap as long as there's nothing above or below that where the tree would be scarred from a previous year's tap. So I'm going to throw this one right here. Here's a hole, and there's a seam right here in the tree, which I don't like. Probably not going to be productive, so I'm just going to come over a little bit more. Tap right here. This tap on the south side of the trees is already starting to run a little bit. It's getting a little warmer here. We're probably over 30 degrees now outside, but I doubt this east side tap will be running. Nope, there's nothing running over here because it hasn't really had enough time to be in the sunshine today. But not really looking for sap today. I'm just tapping my trees. And this week is when I'm hoping for some real production. All right, I'm gonna switch it up because I'm running out of lids for the big galvanized guys here. So this is good. I can show you one of the aluminum buckets and the tent lid. So again, here's the two different spiles. I've been using the plastic so far. I'm going to throw in this aluminum one here now and an aluminum bucket. And then using a tent lid on here instead of the flat lid. Okay, moving on to the next one. All right, here's last year's. I don't see anything 6 inches to the right. I do have a little seam here in the tree, which I don't like, so I'm going to stay away from that. Just go just to the right of that seam. And now I'll go left. I think I got room for it. So if you look at your shavings as you're drilling, you could tell that this is nice, clean, fresh sapwood I'm hitting. It's not all rotten, dead stuff. So that should be fine there. I was a little worried being next to that seam, but looks fine. All right, looking for last year's tap hole over here. You know what? This tree for me is borderline on being big and mature enough to put 2 in. I certainly could, but like I said, I'm trying to tap these trees till I'm an old man, so I don't want to over harvest. So I'm just gonna do this one over here on this side, and this guy. And I'm gonna do, I actually have another kind of spile in here, stainless steel. Show you this one. Grab a hook. This is another type of spile. Another 5/16 goes in the tree this way. Tap, sap comes out of there. And this hook goes on before you tap it in so you can hang your bucket on it. Don't go too far, you don't want to split the wood. You'll have a leak. This is a big one. So this one will definitely get 2 taps. Plenty of room on this one. Okay. tap hole. There's one here. There's one here. So I kept moving 6 inches around. Don't see any 6 inches over from this one, up or down. That means I'll be safe to tap over here. Again, getting that nice, healthy, blonde sapwood right there. So you know you didn't hit a dead spot. It would be brown and dead looking. All right, looks like I have been moving to the left over here. Here's 3 years ago tap hole. Yep, there's one over there, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm gonna come over 6 inches from that last one I see. Clean that out. All right, my battery's running low here, so I'm gonna call this quits. But I'll leave this posted on YouTube, so if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below.